Next up, we've talked a lot about high-performance computing. We've talked a lot about research. We've talked a lot about huge amounts of data. I want to, before we go to the panel discussion, talk a little bit more about just general IT. Day in the life, and to help us kind of explore that side of the world, we've got Mr. Mark Usrey, who is the Director of IT at SRP Companies. And Mark, are you with us?
I am with you. Let me get my cameras and stuff turned on here. And Mark,
I hear you. And you've got a great background graphic there as well.
That's kind of what I was wanting to talk about today, is a little bit on our security and Veeam and what we're using SpectraLogic with, and just kind of give our use case for you. So
great.
So
I've got to ask, is that picture that we're seeing right now of your background, is that one that came up on Microsoft, just a suggestion through Windows, or is that an actual photo you took?
That's an actual. Well, I assume you're seeing the slide presentation here of the Vault and the Spartan.
No, what we see is a starry night sky with maybe a midnight moon over some rock formations.
Yeah, that would be a default.
All right, we'll let you pull up your presentation and have at it.
All right, so let's see, I'm trying to find the screen there. There we go.
Oh, sure, take your time, no trouble.
Find it right there?
There we are.
All right, so it's good to have the feedback. First, I want to thank Bob and Katie and Betsy for inviting me to speak at this. It's kind of nice to share our story, so thank you guys. I've loved listening to all the presenters this morning. And learned a ton. So it's a great event. Thank you guys for hosting it.
Great, glad you're here.
So we're going to talk a little bit about what we do. This is just we're hearing all the high performance stuff out there from all the other presenters, and I'm just blown away at the amounts of data and what everybody's doing. This will seem small by comparison, but we're using SpectraLogic as the back-end repository for our backups. It's quite reliable. So right here and give you a little kind of introduction to the company. I'm currently the Director of Information Technology here. I've served many roles, formerly the CIO until we got acquired, and then I took a title cut, even though they still treat me well. That's fine with me. Like I say, I don't care what you call me, just call me for dinner. I've served in this capacity for the last 3 years, and love it. I'm basically responsible for everything that plugs in within our entire organization. So who is SRP? You probably have. It's unlikely you've ever heard of us, but I guarantee you a lot of you have bought our products. We're currently organized into 6 divisions there: SRP USA, Canada, Fiesta, Global SwiftCo, AES, and SNI. And these are all of our major divisions here. We are the largest DSD provider to convenience stores and big box outlets in the United States for sunglasses, electronics, cell phone accessories, 5-hour energy drinks, vitamins, novelties, that kind of stuff. So if you ever bought a pair of sunglasses or a car charger or a cable at a convenience store, you are more than likely will have bought it from us. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell. Here's some of the kind of numbers that I have out there for the company. We started all the way back in 1969, so the company itself is quite old. I joined it in the early 2000s. We had our major competitor, Pugs, was formed in 1984. There were a couple of acquisitions in there, and in 2014, SolarAy and Pugs joined together to become the largest DSD provider in the U.S. We've been on an acquisition spur, so I inherit a lot of data and computer systems that are not our standards. So I have to get them all integrated in with everything. You can find all of our products in about 60,000 locations across the United States and Canada. We've got 1,100 employees operating out of about 10 locations. And in and out of our data center every day, we run over 10 terabytes of data to and from all of our field employees and all of our remote sites. From an ERP standpoint, we run over 2 million material moves a day on transactions. So that's moves internally within our ERP system to get locations correct, store counts and inventories correct, monitor intercompany transfers, sales orders to stores. So we have over 2 million material moves a day that are recorded in our ERP systems that have got to be covered. Some of the technologies that we use out here and some of our infrastructure, like you heard me mention Oracle EBS 12 is our primary ERP system. A couple of our divisions are still on NetSuite and one is still running Mass 500. I apologize for the incorrect logo up there. So we're working to get them all moved to EBS 12. That's the long-term goal. We've got several SQL servers for supporting third-party apps. We run a very mixed environment. Of course, we've got Windows and Linux, and believe it or not, for the old timers out there, we still have a Novell NetWare server running, from 1994. So it's possible to virtualize NetWare. I was unaware of that until we actually did it.
Good times.
Yeah, it brought back some pain, no doubt about it. So it's a very, very mixed bag of operating systems and environments that we work out of. Here's a picture of actually in our data center of the I still call it the Verde. I know the name has changed to Black Pearl now, but I have a hard time letting Verde go because I love that color of green. So there's a picture of it sitting in one of our racks in our data center, above a couple of other storage appliances and some of our compute resources. We chose Veeam as our backup tool because we'd been using just a wide variety of tools. We'd had a little bit of Veritas, we'd had a little bit of backup exec, we had some RMAN scripts for our Oracle database. So it was just a real hodgepodge of backup requirements. So we decided to move to Veeam because it has very broad support and is used, it supports virtually everything. But we needed some place to store all of the data. We use CDW primarily as a vendor for hardware recommendations because they tend to be hardware agnostic. And when we went to them and approached them about the need for a good, reliable storage device with large capacities and can extend and that kind of stuff, they came back and recommended Spectra's Black Pearl device, or Verde at the time as it was called. So we got one that's configured at about 380 terabytes usable space. It's configured all as RAID 5 since we don't have a lot of high performance needs for it. We just want it to be reliable, and in the event we have to restore from a backup, be there and be online. The Veeam machine that we're running, we have it configured as a virtual machine with 16 CPUs to get all of the compression and dedupe capacity out of it that we can, with 32 gigs in memory, and we have 6 10 gig Ethernet NICs configured into it. I'll show you the network diagram here in a second. So it basically gives the Veeam machine direct access through to all the devices that it needs to get to on a very efficient manner. Here's the logical diagram of how the network lays out. With the Veeam server sitting in the middle, we have 2 connections to the Spectra Verde through a layer 3 switch. They're lagged together, so we do a little bit of load balancing, but across those 2 10 gig connections, we have multiple channels and multiple backups running simultaneously, almost 24 hours a day on it to get the data backed up. And the Veeam server then is connected with 4 NICs to our iSCSI network. Our primary storage medium is Dell EMC Unity 450F. It's about 80 terabytes of all-flash memory. So it's a very high-performance storage array network that we use all of our Oracle operations on. So that's what we're backing up off of. And so we have the iSCSI network there that it accesses. We use VMware to drive all of it, so it connects to the vCenter on the management network, and then after it knows all the machines that need to be backed up, then it connects with the SAN directly and does a SAN to Verde transfer, bypassing all of the vCenter and all the VMware stuff. So it connects directly to the storage appliance. One of the reasons that we also chose Spectra is you see there's a safety first. it's really, really critical in today's zero trust networks that your backups be protected from your own network. Most ransomware attacks, whenever they're targeting your system, they also really like to especially find your backups, because if you can recover from your backup, you don't have to pay the ransom. So they really, really want to find your backups and encrypt those. So it's really important that your backups be isolated and well protected from regular network access. If they get your backups, you're going to be buying some Bitcoin. There's no way around it. And I will tell you from experience that is not a pleasant thing to do. I've had to do that before. So you should take a lot of effort to make sure that your backups are not accessible through your general network access. Once you get in and get your network set up and believe you have it set up, then test it. Test it yourselves, test it again, and then test some more, trying your hardest to break it. And then get somebody from outside of your company or organization to come in and have them test it, because they will test it in ways that you didn't think of. I can't stress that enough about testing that penetration and that isolation from your network to protect all that stuff. It's just absolutely critical that you can assure your management that your backups are safe in the event of a ransomware attack or some other attack. You should also be testing your backups. Most people that I know, they'll say, oh yeah, I have backups, and then they go to restore them and the backups are not good. So you need to make sure that you test your backups, they're actually good on restorations, they will restore properly, and if possible, you should automate that testing. We automate testing a variety of ways. We use Veeam1 for most of our backups. It will actually spin the machines up from the backups and send us a report and says, yes, I was able to successfully restore this machine, and it would turn on, and here's a screenshot, give me all that information about the machine. So you need to really make sure you have some way to either, if you have few enough machines, test manually. If not, automate the testing. We run about 150 virtual machines on our compute network in our data centers, so it's not really plausible for us to just do all the manual testing. We rely on that automation software to let us know when we have problems. You should also harden your Veeam server, your backup server, as much as you can. What we've done here is we don't place it on our domain. It's not a member, not a computer domain or anything else. It's on its own separate network, its own separate work group. We've hardened all the access to it, so we don't allow access to any of the shares, including the administrative shares, CD, admin, netlogon, all the hidden ones. We have very limited access. People that can access it only are backup administrators, and we restrict that from certain machines on the network. They have to go through certain intermediate machines to get there. They can't just log on from their desktops. So it's very restricted access to make sure that nobody can sneak in across something that we might have missed. We also require multi-factor authentication to log in. So if you want to log into that machine, you have to authenticate yourself using, we use Okta, so using your multi-factor authentication credentials. We've stopped all the unneeded services that we didn't need on that machine. The Windows runs a bunch of services that are not necessarily needed for normal operations, so anything that was just not the absolute bare minimum that was needed has been disabled on that machine. And we blocked all of the inbound ports on that computer, except for just a few essential services that you have to reach out to it to connect to, mostly some of the automated testing stuff. And then we check that regularly. We conduct a yearly penetration audit or pen test against that machine by outside firms, and then we test it ourselves internally regularly quite a bit. So it's actually really difficult to get into our backup server, but I sleep a lot better at night knowing that my backups are safe. So if somebody gets in and wants to wreak mayhem on my network, I can restore if I have to. The other way that type of stuff on your backups, and I say from a security standpoint, and I've heard a couple of speakers talk about this already, is reduce your backup needs. That will help quite a bit as well. And you can do that by establishing a retention policy and adhering to it. I know we've had users talk about, or presenters talk about, how difficult it is to get users to delete everything, and we are no different. We have that same issue. We go back and look at our store cycle stuff, and we can find files from 13, 14 years ago that have not been accessed in that long. But if you go and ask the user, can I delete this? The answer is always, I might need that. And I'm like, really? 14 years? Okay. So we're in the process of getting store cycle going full time to get a lot of that data off that high performance SAN, and we'll actually probably be putting that on the Black Pearl device as well. I'm not going to speak any more about that. You guys have heard some excellent presentations on how it's being used today, and all I can say is a fantastic product. I got one last slide for you here. You've seen, I'm sure you've noticed on the theme for the PowerPoint presentation, the Spartans. This is one of my favorite photographs. We use a Spartan culture as as kind of our corporate culture here within the IT group for SRP. And during a lot of our training, this is one of the slides it's presented. And if you look at that, it looks kind of like a bunch of Spartans getting ready to get rained on. Well, if you study the photo closer, you actually will discover those are really not raindrops. Those are really arrows coming in to the Spartans from the hordes on the other side of the wall over there, where they're getting ready to go do battle. In a lot of ways, this is how our job as IT professionals is that we have arrows coming at us all the time, and problems and issues and everything else. And our job is to deal with them and deflect them and make them go away and not get killed in the process. So that's why I like this picture of the Spartans there. So MERDA, or the SpectraLogic and the Veeam, is one of those tools, one of those shields that we use to help me, do my job, make sure that we have good and reliable backups here in case something goes wrong with our network. So with that, Bob, that's all I had for you. I appreciate it. Thank you. If you got any questions, chime in and see what we got.
Outstanding overview, and on one of the most important topics these days that we could think of with the number of viruses and attacks that we've been seeing. One question came in: when you test backups, do you test 100% or random samples?
We test 100%. Every day. It tests every VM that we back up, and it spins them up and actually takes a screenshot. If it can't find a screenshot or has an issue spinning up the machine, we get an exception alert, and then that's what my staff deals with. So if it's good, we don't care. We don't want about the exceptions. We test 100% of our backups every day.
Gotcha. Okay, that's great. Dedicated. A question: we use Veeam. My question is, can I restore a laptop or PC when I'm logging into it? Right now, we have to use a bootable USB stick. That's correct. If you're going to restore on a laptop or a PC, you have to use the USB stick. You can't boot directly. So gotcha. I would put a caveat on that: is I am not the Veeam expert. I use it, but I got technicians that I paid to be the experts on that. So that's a wise move. I have restored machines and I've not been able to do that. I had to use a USB stick as well. So. Right. Okay. And let's see. Last question. It looks like as of now, do you have DR for backed up data? So do you differentiate between your backups and a disaster recovery copy, or how does that work? We currently today, and everybody's going to cringe when I say this, is we do not have a DR solution in place. We are in the midst of getting one done, and we'll have one done by the end of the year, at which point our backups will split. All of our non-critical path systems will stay as they are today, just being backed up on Veeam like they are using the Black Pearl device. And when I say non-critical path systems, those are things like development and test systems, just sundry support servers that people are supposed to play with, or it's not things that we're actually using to run business operations. So all of our critical path business operations, like our Oracle database servers, our application servers, anything that we need to actually conduct business with, our FTP servers to receive files from customers, that kind of stuff, we'll actually go through. We're going to be using Rubrik to do all that with. So the backups will actually be on that, and then they're going to be replicated to a data center in Reston, Virginia. They're actually already in the process of being replicated there, so that we can spin up disaster recovery as a service. So the DR as a service there in the case of a disaster. And that's interesting, Mark. You mentioned Rubrik, which is a very strong partner with Spectra as well. A question I have: Do you find using store cycle to, as you mentioned, make your primary storage smaller, migrate data so you're not constantly backing up the same data that's not changing? Do you find that that has a big effect as far as financial impact for what you will do in this next step? How much data you have to replicate or back up or that sort of thing?
It probably have minimal financial impact. It's mostly performance that we gain out of that deal, because on the Rubrik side, it's typically purchased in blocks of storage. So you buy a chunk of storage and then you pay for an overage if you go over. So of course we've sized everything based on current capacity, so the financial impact is going to be minimal. When we get ready to do that, it's mostly a performance issue of it's just smaller files, easier to back up, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. So more the performance window.
Yeah.
All right, great. I think that's it for questions. Outstanding presentation, Mark, and thanks for those insights. And thanks for being a part of the event today.
Not nearly as exciting as a lot of the high performance stuff we saw earlier, but there are a lot of people that do this day in and day out.
That's right. It's all part of it.